All right, so before we start with Fun Fact Friday today, it needs to be addressed what and how amazing YouTube can be and what it is not. So my extreme condolences go out to whoever was involved with the incident at the headquarters Wednesday. Without us, there is no YouTube. So let's pick up our game. Let's make better videos. Let's have better conversations. Let's share cooler content and let's be better people, make this world a better place and use YouTube for what it can be used for. Yeah, man, be awesome, huh? Whew. All right, so with that out of the way, I am ready to go. All right, so fact number 1, animals during the harvest of grain die. So basically, nothing is animal free. And what I mean by that is, I think it was Professor Davis at University of Oregon did a study that basically showed around 1 million animals per year die during the harvest of grain. And if you think about it, I mean, it does make sense, right? Where we have massive combine machines, massive farming machines that are going through these fields and they're harvesting a lot of grain at one time. And nonetheless, I mean, the insects and all of that stuff with the pesticides, that's a whole nother conversation to have. But also the mice and the rats and the bunnies and the rabbits and all these other small little animals, and including animals that are not so small, like baby deers and things like this, that get caught up in those machines because they're grazing on the grain or the grass or whatever it is, completely makes sense. Now, I know there's been a lot of people, and if you read online, yeah, that's debunked, that's not true, that doesn't happen, there's no amount of number, we don't know, and blah, 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 blah. I think it was actually Jack Norris, I always want to say Chuck Norris, but I think it was Jack Norris was the president of a vegan society or whatever, basically stepped up to the plate and said, yeah, you know what, we know this is a situation, we know this is an issue that doesn't really take anything away from vegans, but to address it and acknowledge it, I think was very big. And I think it's very big because when I speak with my vegan or vegetarian friends or colleagues or clients or students when I'm lecturing at the university that are thinking about going vegan, it's very important for them to understand that really there's no such thing as this blood-free or safe food. So many of the vegans I've had this conversation with are completely unaware of the fact that animals are killed during the process of the grain that they eat. So they're eating pastas, they're eating breads, they're doing whatever they do thinking that it's completely, safe from animal harm, and that's just not true. Now, I'm not saying every single time I tell a vegan this, they're like, okay, bam, I switch, I'm gonna eat meat like all day long. But for like ignorance to be bliss is not cool. So for me, it's very important to discuss with people that they at least know that one, on the animal side, when they're choosing to eat these grains, especially if they're shopping at larger stores, God, I would say if they're shopping really at any grocery store, the idea that no animals were harmed during the process of obtaining that grain is just almost impossible. And I think one to throw on top of that too is not only the meat, but all of us need to be careful when we're also looking at vegetables and fruit. I would say more fruit than vegetables because fruit comes from those warm lands with less laws. But with the fruit, we have to remember that we're getting these things from countries like Nicaragua and Colombia and countries that are not bad if you're coming from there, but we know they have different laws when it comes to child labor. So we may say, you know what, I actually don't want to eat that food because it is an animal product and that's not my thing. But then we might choose a banana that was picked by a boy that had been working 16, 17 hours a day. And if we want to question that and say, yeah, but we don't know if that's true, there's fair trade, I understand that. But one, I lived in Egypt for 5 years, and why I don't want to say like I helped the kids pick the bananas and oranges, I definitely saw it happening. And when we also then have that argument on the meat side, to jump around here a little bit, that yeah, organic and grass-fed, that doesn't exist, well then we need to have that same open-mindedness or this ability to question these things on the side of free trade. So if we're like, oh yeah, okay, that coconut oil says it's free trade, that banana's free trade, bam, we believe it right away. But then when we question, or when the vegan or vegetarian questions that with the grass-fed product, we can't really have our cake and eat it too. If we're gonna question one side, then we really need to make sure we also question the other side. And I think that brings me into another interesting point that I often discuss with vegans and vegetarians, is that if they believe that there's really no such thing as, grass-fed or a euthanized way to kill these animals. I respect that, but at the same time, I have the ability to go to a butcher. I'm living in Germany, so this is still an option. And I know that he knows where this meat and the poultry and whatever he's getting is coming from. And I know that even though it may have been raised to die, basically, for me, what is important is the life that it lived up until it died. And if my animal that I'm eating was euthanized or killed in a clean way, I think that's a very interesting conversation to have, because if the vegans are choosing not to do that because they don't want to eat anything that was basically killed in a terrible way, well, then we've got to look at the grains that they are eating, because if Bambi's taking a nap and getting absolutely destroyed by a tractor, I think that's much different than a cow living a very nice life and then being euthanized in a very clean and efficient way to be turned into food. So by no means have I ever had this conversation with somebody and like that changed their mind and had them eating meat right away. But to have a discussion with them and make them aware of the fact that these animals are being killed during the harvest of this grain. I think probably 9.5 out of 10 vegans were not aware of that. So I think it's important for them to at least know really the truth about both sides, so then they can make a better decision. Wow, so that's it, man. That was a little bit harder than I thought, but I really want to thank you for taking the time and yeah, listening to what I have to say. And put your comments below if you agree, if you don't agree, if you have more questions, yeah, let me know. And if you want to learn more about me, check out my website, gtsgermany.com. I've got my bio there. And please subscribe. I'll be doing 2 of these bad boys a month. And if you want to be notified for them and my other videos, hit that bell, and hopefully you won't look back.